TFL Podcast this week. We're back. I'm so pumped for these guys. Episode 14. They almost need no introduction, but I'm going to introduce them anyway. Two of my oldest teammates, good friends, thrilled to have them. Tommy Marechek down in sunny Bradenton, Florida, at IMG Academy, former Philadelphia Wing. Both these guys played their entire career for the Philadelphia Wings. Jake Bergey, without introduction, number 66 from the Philadelphia Wings. And these guys were the backbone of a number of championships in a dynasty that was the Philadelphia Wings. I'm proud to call them friends and proud to call them teammates. Fellas, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Good to be here.
I mean, I can't say enough about these two guys and what they mean to me and my family. For those people that don't know, I have a son. His name's Jake Thomas, and you can figure out why Jake Thomas, even though my wife denies it and says it wasn't true. My son is named after 66 and 42. So, means a lot to me to have you guys here, and I'm pumped.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's quite an honor. I tell you, Steve, my first impressions of you though was not the most fond. I got to say, we were in one of our practices, and we were doing man up, man down, and I was a rookie. I was on the scout team, and you were on the man up or the man down team. So we were kind of practicing, the balls going back and forth, and the ball would come to me. I would throw it, and you'd come out and whack my arms. And every time I'd get the ball, I'd throw it away. You'd come out and whack me. So one time you came out to whack me, and I hauled off and whacked you in the head. And I think I gave you a couple stitches. But after that, I think we've been pretty tight, and the rest history.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions to tell that story, but you kind of jumped the gun on me, which is great. But I remember it exactly the same way. It was your rookie season. It was super early in training camp, and I knew at that point that you were going to have a long and illustrious career, and I was going to love you because you had the balls to whack me back. But you did hit me in the face. Got a couple stitches. Had to hold up Tommy from getting home because we used to travel back and forth in New Jersey for practice, meet in the IKEA parking lot in Maryland. And, I'm getting stitches at 2:00 in the morning. But I will never forget Jake Bergey took it like a man and gave it right back.
Well, so I realized real early in my career that there was, you couldn't mess around at all, even in practice. I know Tony Resch would run quite a ship there, but another guy right off the bat, Chris Bates, we were playing this full field scrimmage match, and I ran down the field. Ball wasn't around me, no one around me, and he hit me in the chest, and I went down and gasping for air. I realized right then you got to keep your head on a swivel, and you got to fight for everything you got. So. When a
midget like Chris Bates hits you and it hurts that you're in a real game.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for it. That's for sure.
Hey, Tommy, tell me about how you started playing this game. I know you've had a recent loss. Your father, our sincerest condolences, and I know your dad was a big part of your life. And I know your older brother pretty well, and you and I played Team Canada. With him in 1994, which was a pretty special experience for me, and I know for you as well to play with your brother on Team Canada a couple times, I think. And at the end of the day, how did you start in the game?
Well, it's a good story. I lived in Sydney, British Columbia, just south of Victoria, downtown, and I signed up for baseball. I was 7 years old. And
why doesn't that surprise me?
My neighbor, Andrew Neville, I still remember his name. We both signed up for baseball for Saanich Peninsula rec program. My brother was gone. He was in Ontario for 2 years working and playing junior A. So I didn't even see my brother Billy for 2 years. He came home that summer just when I was about to play my first practice in baseball. He literally took my glove and chucked it over the neighbor's fence. And he gave me this old wooden Logan box stick. And to his credit, he was waiting for me after school every day in the fall, and he taught me the game of lacrosse.
Well, fond memories of Billy Marechek. I know he's up in Victoria. I'm sure he's probably going to watch this. He was one of your biggest fans, if not the biggest fan, when you went away to Syracuse. I remember, he always got kind of the hand-me-down or hand-me-ups, if you will, of every piece of orange equipment, shoe, every possible T-shirt or anything that had the Syracuse orange S on it. He was all in. So Victoria pretty much owned the Syracuse. I remember every guy on Victoria Shamrocks had Syracuse stuff. I don't know how it happened, but it must have been you and a few other guys
A couple other guys, yeah. Some other.
Hey, Jake, I want to talk a little bit about your background in the game, because I know you got a younger brother, but your dad obviously had an illustrious and famous career playing in the NFL. Larger than life character who I grew to love as your career flourished in the National Lacrosse League. He was at every game. He was a Philly fixture at Wings games. Pretty proud of, obviously, Scott Gabrielson's dad and your dad were always there and our biggest supporters on that team. And loved getting to know your dad. He was, like I said, larger than life character. But how does a football kid, with an Eagles background, and obviously the homage is wearing number 66 your entire career, which was your dad's number. But talk about how you got into the game of lacrosse and not football.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was similar to Tommy's, where I just had an influence, and it was my older brother. We went to a small private school out in Unionville, Pennsylvania, and it was such a small school that all the kids had to play 3 sports, and you didn't have a choice. It was soccer, it was ice hockey, and it was lacrosse, and that's what you had. But my older brother went through the school first. He started playing it. So I kind of picked it up, just wanting to do what your older brother did. And I really took a liking to the sport. And that's kind of how it blossomed. And I went to that school. It goes up to 9th grade, and then went on to the Tatnall School, which is down in Wilmington, Delaware. And that's really kind of where I started blossoming into a player. And I just, the sport has given so much to me, and just enjoyed every minute of the ride.
I think it's funny, and you guys can talk about this at least a little bit, but, football, interestingly enough, like the line in football, the offensive players on the line in football, which I think your dad was an offensive lineman, was he not?
He was not. He was a linebacker, but
shows what I know, right? But anyway, the offensive line and he was big enough to be an offensive lineman.
He was, yeah, he's a big boy.
But the offensive line in football is more of a defensive position as you protect your quarterback, right? And the defensive line position, you're trying to get to the quarterback, so it's more of an offensive. If you switch lacrosse and football, offense and defense are kind of juxtaposed there. And what I find interesting is that you played the game of lacrosse like a defensive tackle trying to get to a quarterback, and not many guys could stop you. Tommy, is that right? Well, you watched him play a lot. He cleared a lot of space for you.
He did. We had a little 1-2 connection, sometimes not legal.
I know what you're talking about.
A lot of cross checks to the hips and but it was great. Obviously that's another story. Jake and I were a perfect match for each other.
So you guys walk into the locker room, and you both did it kind of at different times. And Tommy, a seasoned veteran of the box game, obviously, and went to Syracuse and had an illustrious career there. But you got drafted, I think, by Buffalo, right? And so there was a couple trades and things were
Yeah, I got Buffalo. I went to their practice twice and realized I wasn't one of those guys. I needed a year off. I was dating a girl from Syracuse at the time, and I just wanted to enjoy my life after I played at Syracuse for 4 seasons. So it was a good choice. Mike French and I got on the phone, and Gary and Paul kind of advocated for myself, and I played the next year in '94.
So you and I walk into that locker room at the same time, and we didn't really walk into a locker room in the first practice, right? You walked into a practice facility that you and I probably looked at and went, whoa, what is this place? Because it wasn't anything we had ever been in before. And we go into a training camp with a bunch of guys that have never really played the game. But obviously, I shouldn't say a bunch of guys that never played the game, an established Philadelphia team that had lost in the finals to Buffalo in 92 and 93. And you and I walk in October of 1993. Tell me about your first impressions at camp.
It was exciting. It wasn't like Canada where we're used to, guys grew up together. So that team was a mix of Philadelphia guys, New York guys. Right away, they made us feel welcome. And you got to admit that, Scott Gabrielson was great. He was a great captain. And you got Gary Martin, Chris Flynn, and, Paul Denikin. And they were just right away, you knew it was a unified team. And they made me feel welcome. I didn't go in there, with a chip on my shoulder being a Canadian guy. And Scott Gabrielson was great. I loved that whole atmosphere.
Yeah, I remember it much differently. I did go in with a chip on my shoulder, and so I remember it a little differently. But I do remember this. Back in the day, you had 2 weekends to make the team. You had 4 practices. You basically went in Saturday, Sunday the following weekend, and that's how you had a chance to make the team. Dallas Elliott was a goalie, obviously, and he advocated for me a little bit, and so did the Gates. But ultimately, we make that team. That team was pretty successful. But Bergey, you walked into a team that was relatively established, in 97, 98, and that, what was your impression as a field guy walking into that room?
Well, it was probably quite a bit different, because one, I never played box lacrosse besides, pick up in college where we were trying to get a workout in. So it was a little bit of learning on the fly. And just like you said, I remember the same thing. You had 2 weekends to try to make the team, and, not an easy thing to do. Now, fortunately, we were very locally weighted with local guys on the Philly team, and I think that may have helped a little bit. But one funny story I remember that when I was trying to make the team, we had to practice, I think, up in Pennington, New Jersey, and I remember it was a Saturday night and then a Sunday morning, and I flew up there we drove up there, and I ended up getting a room because it's about an hour and a half from my house because we had an early practice the next day. And I was staying at this little hotel room, and I called the front for a wake-up call, and they never gave me the wake-up call. So I roll into practice about 20 minutes late, just absolutely appalled, that I'm going to get cut because of this. But, it was definitely different because, I'm trying to learn the game. I have all these guys that I looked up to, Steve Govett and Tom Marechek and the Gates. And now I'm, playing with these guys. I had season tickets, all through high school. So, I feel like I was a student of the game. I tried to learn the game, but again, it was a lot of learning on the fly for me, trying to figure out this game and make the team at the same time.
I remember Tony Resch saying stuff like, you can't really prepare to play box lacrosse. It's kind of like getting prepared for camp was like working out in a washing machine, and you're getting tumbled and turned and beat on and the crap kicked out of you. But obviously you both had first games, and Tommy, your first game in the Spectrum, and I seem to remember somehow that you and I watched a game, our first game from the press box together. And not many people will remember that about the illustrious start of our careers was in the press box for the Philadelphia Wings. And you and I were both pretty pissed off. And like, what?
Yeah.
Why
well, I was watching your episode with Jimmy Rogers explaining that whole situation. I went to my girlfriend's formal back at Syracuse, and GT Corrigan, I think he had
was it her high school formal?
It was high school, yeah. It was high school. So GT Corrigan had it in for me for some reason. He had it up for me, and we get back to practice before the first game of the season against the Saints at the Spectrum. And all of a sudden, I was getting my red on, first line, second line. I forgot the colors back then, color schemes. And all of a sudden, I think Tony Resch was like, all right, Marechek, you're green. And I looked around going, green? Green's like the fourth line. Green's not playing. Green's not starting in the game. Jimmy Rogers is like, hey, how's it going, Chuchi? What's going on, Chuchi? And she's like, look, I'm like, you mother. So Jimmy Rogers took my spot first game because I missed practice, a crucial practice. But I never did that again. And I was with you in the stands watching Jimmy Rogers score 2 goals, and I think he had an assist or 2. So I'm like, wow, my job's in jeopardy here. My spot's in jeopardy.
But for those people that don't know, back in that time frame, we had a 20-person roster, and it included 23 actually with goalies, and 15 runners dressed and 2 goalies. So 17 guys dressed. A little bit different now, but it meant a full 5-person line didn't play. And Tony would post the roster, the lineup, before practice on Wednesday nights when we practiced. And so you knew going into practice. And I will never forget, the hardest working guys, the most pissed off guys, were the 5 guys that weren't playing. And ultimately, the 5 guys, and you called them the green line, I didn't remember that, but the green line would be the guys that ended up like winning practice because they would beat the tar out of everybody. They would score every goal. They would show everybody up and try really hard because they were all angry. But I do remember that. Jake, do you remember it that way?
Oh God, I remember. I remember when he would tape it up on the glass, like right before you would go out to practice, and you just kind of go down looking for your name, hoping you were on it. So yeah, I remember that, and it was tedious. And you're right, man. It was a battle in practice. I remember. We talked about you and I getting into it right off the bat, but I remember full-blown fights in practice because, guys are fighting it. And those guys who didn't play, they're practicing that Wednesday for hopefully trying to make the game the following week. So they're battling.
Tommy, 1995, the 5 guys that made the team didn't dress in one game. There were 5 guys that were on the green line the entire season. Nobody got hurt. They literally did not play. Gabby Rowe was one of those guys. I remember Gabby Rowe. You guys, Berg, you probably don't remember this story, but Tommy will. But I had a fight with Jake, I had a lot of fights in practice. Gabby Rowe in practice, and I had a fight in the preseason. I didn't know who this guy was. He was a joker. Used a weird stick and shit out of the ball and talked a lot and looked like the Joker. Now he's Tommy Marechek's brother-in-law. Gabby Rowe and I have a fight in practice, and typical fight in practice. You take your helmets off, things happen. He has no idea what he's in for. Things go the way they go. And then it's over, and I'm walking away. He picks up his helmet, and he's coming at me with his helmet. He's going to hit me in the back of the head with his helmet on the way out of practice. There's no penalty, no referees. Somebody grabbed him before he hit me in the back of the head, or it would have been a homicide. But at the end of the day, I'll never forget that story. But Gabby Rowe didn't play the rest of the year, so maybe you probably shouldn't mess with me. Mess with the bully, get the horns.
The goop,
right.
The goopster. Yeah, I love the goop. The goop.
So first game in the Spectrum for you, was it in the Spectrum, Jake? It was in the new building, right? In the Wells Fargo Center?
Yeah. So just to back up a little bit, we kind of how I got into this and playing box. If you remember, when I came into the league, the players were striking. And I remember Chris Flynn was basically like, are you with us? Or are you with them? Good. And I've been playing lacrosse. I've been waiting for this moment for, the past 10 years to try out for the Wings. And I think the first, 3 weeks of practice, we basically we sat out, and that was tough. But no, my first game was in the new building. I think it was the first year. So, everyone told me how great the old Spectrum was, and everyone was on top of you. So I did miss that, but I also did miss the spandex. So I guess it's a little give and take. I didn't have to go that route. But
you wouldn't have fit in spandex. Your legs are too big.
my first game I'll never forget was up in Buffalo though, and I line up to take a face off as one of the wing guys. And whoever I was playing with kind of gave me an elbow up in the chops. And, we get your jaw like knocked off line. right off the bat, getting my jaw knocked offline. I can't see straight. And I was like, I didn't know what I got myself into, but I ended up having a couple goals that game, and that's just have to keep your head on a swivel at all times. I know that.
And hey, thank God that year we had you, because they just traded Gary Gate to the Thunder. Dennis Townsend had a bucket full of money for Gary, and of course Gary jumped on it. But everybody counted us out, right? Remember that? Everybody said, "Oh,
yeah,
you got
absolutely.
no Gary Gate, no championship," and we were. It was actually, they put fuel in our fire and into the fire, and that's what just ignited us.
Yeah, and we end up playing them in the finals in that best of 3 series where we I think we won home and then won down there to take the title. Yeah.
Yeah.
We won it on a Tuesday night you guys remember a Tuesday night in Baltimore. And the road trip home was a ton of fun.
Oh.
But what was your favorite road arena to play in?
I love the controversy, right? So Buffalo was always great. I felt like the fans really tried to ride you. You'd walk into the locker room and they're spitting on you and giving you the finger and everything else. So I always liked there. I had a bunch of family in the Rochester area, a bunch of family and friends. So I always enjoyed going up there as well. And then, I always liked playing in Toronto as well, because there was a lot of fans, and Colorado was similar to that late in my career. But, that was I loved a lot of fans. I loved a lot of, hostility, a lot of anger, and I kind of fed off that.
Tommy, you played in a lot of sold-out buildings in the National Lacrosse League and the Mill back in the day, and the Spectrum and the Odd and Maple Leaf Gardens and all those cool buildings to play in. We played in the Boston Garden, and obviously you love playing in the Boston Garden so much that you missed the flight the next day. But let's not get into that. But what was your favorite road arena?
Buffalo. The Odd.
Had to be, right?
Yeah, that was well, actually, going back, Steve, your and my first game in '94 was at the Odd, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was on the road. We actually won, and I remember that you and I had to be the rookies to go fill up the bathtub in one of the hotel rooms with ice and beer before the game even started. So I kept on wondering, do we have a game tonight? Because we're kind of getting ready for this big party. But yeah, the Odd was scary. That environment was crazy with the foghorn and the lights and the seats were just on top of you, and that was it's crazy. That environment was great. I
don't know which was scarier, playing in the Buffalo Auditorium or going to Le Club after the game.
Ooh, somebody got stabbed didn't somebody get stabbed at the Le Club one year when we were there?
And then Jimmy Rogers got jumped on by this giant person he was dancing. That's right. He was just dancing.
He was dancing. It was his date. Do you mind if I dance with your date? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, Jimmy was half the size. But Boston Gardens obviously was a special place. It was such a rat hole. I didn't realize. You watch this place on TV. I was a Boston Bruins fan as a kid, and to actually play in that arena was special to me. But what a dump.
You had to run faster than the rats to get onto the field.
Yeah, rats everywhere, all yellow chip paint everywhere. Nassau Coliseum was a dump.
Yeah, I was going to say that place isn't much better.
But nothing beats, right, Jake? Nothing beats Syracuse, the War Memorial.
Oh, yeah.
The War Memorial.
You literally had to go shower, find a sink outside to shower because the shower dripped.
I remember we came in and instead of having lockers, our jerseys were hung on pipes.
Yeah. I got one year I got staph infection from that freaking place. Staph infection. I had to take pills for like a month. I had scabs all over my legs from the carpet. The worst turf carpet ever was that Syracuse place.
Cali BBQ is proud to be an official sponsor of your San Diego Seals. Buy our slow smoked barbecue at any Seals home game or online anytime at www.calibbq.media.
Hey, Bergey, tell me about wearing number 66. What did that mean to you for your career?
So So, I had obviously a bunch of different numbers throughout growing up. And when I got to college, I was number 6. And then, when I kind of transitioned and was going to Philadelphia and playing, it just seemed like the right decision. You have a lot of fans of the Wings that are obviously Phillies fans and Flyers fans and Sixers and of course the Eagles. So, I thought it was a kind of a tribute to my dad, who's, been there throughout my career the whole time and has helped me in so many different ways. And then I thought it was cool for the fans maybe to see 66 running around, Philly again with Bergey on the back of his jersey. So I think it was the right decision. And I just, I loved every minute of it. I love the fans, chanting my name and yelling 66. And it was, great time.
Hey, so Tommy, I don't know that we have time to go into all the origins of all your nicknames, but there were a lot of nicknames.
No,
Tommy
there was.
Chooch and Hollywood.
Yeah.
How many did you have?
I had a few. Actually, my first nickname was the Peppers back home called me Chachi from Joni Loves Chachi, the Happy Days, because they swore I had a red bandana wrapped around my jeans at a party, and I had a comb in the back pocket just like Chachi. My hair was always parted in the middle as a kid, but I don't know. Pepper called me Hollywood. Oh, the lights went off. Can you still see me?
I can still see you.
Anyways, Hollywood started with
You're
the
much
Peppers.
better looking in the dark.
Thank you. Hollywood started with Peppers in the Mitchell Cup. They started calling me that, and I don't know, whatever. I guess that's where it started.
Chuchi, there was this great playing with both you and your brother. You guys had like a non-verbal communication process that you would do these little sounds. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Tell me about that, because it's actually an interesting story how that came about.
Well, I'm one of 6 siblings, and 3 of them are hard of hearing. My 2 sisters and my brother Brian. And Brian played a lot of lacrosse as well growing up. And when we played a little backyard lacrosse around the driveway, he really couldn't hear well. He couldn't be like, Brian, pass the ball. Brian, here, I'm open. So whoop, whoop was the thing that kind of caught his attention. So we're like, whoop, whoop. So he knew exactly who to pass to. And that just stuck as when I was a kid and Billy was teaching me. Billy's 13 years older than me. So whoop, whoop started, and that was from Brian, my brother Brian Marechek. And Gary Gate, that's all he calls Billy's, whoop, whoop. So every time Gary comes home in the summer, he goes, whoop, 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 whoop.
It's pretty funny because it caught on a lot of times on the teams that we were on in both Team Canada and the Wings. At times we would do it to you, and you would see us, not that you had the ball very much, but you would see us, a lot. Look, he didn't pass the ball mainly because he was shooting and it was going in the net, and you didn't want to pass to me anyway. But
come on. Yes, I did. Of course I did.
Yeah.
So
anyway, I'm kidding. But look, you guys played together for a long time and had an amazing chemistry. I'm not sure you used the terms whoop, whoop, but you guys really had this massive chemistry for a long period of time, and ultimately, came together to play together. And it was a thing of beauty, and thing of beauty. It was bit of Beauty and the Beast. Like Jake was a pretty much straight ahead.
I was Beauty.
Right through. Tommy was Beauty with his stick and a magician. And I know John Grant, nowadays, because of television and the MLL and all that fun stuff, gets this moniker that he's a magician with his stick and a wizard, if you will. But Tommy was the original wizard with his stick. But you guys played together for a long time. Just talk about that chemistry you had.
Yeah, I mean, I can start here. First of all, it made my job a whole lot easier playing with Tommy. He's going to score goals from angles that 90% of the people aren't going to be able to even have a look at. So, I think our games jive so well together. Just like you said, I was a big body. I was strong. It was tough to move me. And I think back when we played, you could get away with a little more clutching and grabbing than you can today. And, I had a knack to kind of get underneath the guy and grab a hold of him. And then I would just stand my ground, and then Tommy would feed off that. And we just had a real good process where if they're both jumping to Tommy, he's going to find me the ball. And if not, I'm just using both myself and this other guy as a big double pick, and he's running around. So, I know there was one article, I think it came out in either Lacrosse magazine or one of those, and it called us the Stockton and Malone of lacrosse. And I thought that was pretty cool because, those guys at the height of their career did it the best. And I just think we just had a good chemistry and a good vibe and worked off each other.
Yeah.
Which one was Stockton and which one was Malone?
I don't know.
I'm the 5'10" Stockton. No, Jake was great to play with. Gary left and Jake came in and filled a great void there for the wings. And having him as a righty on my side was amazing. And like I said, we cheated a lot. We didn't get caught a lot. And I was holding some jerseys and hitting hips, and he was doing the same. And he would hold my guy with one arm as I go around and score, dive, or whatever. But pass it back to Jake if he's open, if two guys clamped on me. So we worked so well together. I think we definitely were the two best two-man team ever. And I miss that. The problem was, though, when we wanted an 0-1 finally in Toronto, Jake went and played in a stupid match that he shouldn't have in December. I think it was in Colorado, right? Denver. And I told Jake, it doesn't mean anything. I'm not going. I'm going to get ready for the season. And Jake goes and blows his freaking knee out. And he just wasn't the same anymore.
So 0-1, you guys win in Toronto against a team that everybody thought. And some of your championships, in fact, Tommy, all your championships with the Wings, and I know, we won 3 of them together, with the exception of 95, 94, 98, 2001, Philadelphia was pretty significant underdogs and probably under appreciated going into those games. And 0-1 was kind of the pinnacle of that, with a great roster that really good GM put together and then left, but we're not going to get into that.
We got a better GM that year, Rogers, didn't we?
I know, because he bought all the drinks. I know.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
So the players were all in place, but Mark Millen, another unbelievable player.
Clarkey,
and
he was
John
awesome.
Gagliardi and Tom Fair, and there was a number of guys that stepped up in that game, and I think Rat was in that game, and
yeah.
Obviously, Dallas Elliott played out of his mind, but that 2001 championship was really, you guys went up into the Air Canada Center and took it to them in a 9-8 game, and I think shocked the lacrosse world with that win and the last championship in the league of your careers. But man, what an unbelievable run that was in Philadelphia. But who would you consider your most hated rival for those years? I mean, I think it's an easy answer, but what do you guys think?
I think you probably would guess it. Or I don't know if you're talking individuals or you're talking teams, but Toronto was kind of a thorn in our side there for a while at the end. And I remember going into that championship game in 0-1, and we get in our hotel rooms and we're settled and flipping through the TV, and Colin Doyle's on, and they're talking three-peat, and they're talking this and that and greatest team ever. And I think a lot of people kind of took that to heart, and we came out with a chip on our shoulder and took it to them. I know the game was 9-8, but it really wasn't even that close. I think they scored a bunch of late goals including one with like a half a second left to make it even that close. But I remember Coyle and Bullen and those guys battling with them, Tommy and I remember one TV game that we had, it may have even been that game, where they made us do a standoff before the game and just kind of stare at each other while the TV cameras went around and filmed us, which was kind of an awkward moment. But yeah, I mean, Toronto, I would say probably was the the team that I really wanted to, beat.
How about you, Tom?
I agree. I think Toronto became my arch nemesis. Of course, they weren't in the league the first 4 or 5 years, but Buffalo was first. But yeah, Toronto did. They got a little too cocky, and they had a write-up actually in the paper before that championship game. Remember that, Jake? How the Americans are weak. They don't cut through the middle. They're scared. So that fired us up, seeing that article before that championship game. And I remember specifically in that practice, we had a shoot-around in the Air Canada Center before the championship game in 01. We were, I'm like, guys, put that ever ready battery on your shoulder. Have a chip on your shoulder tomorrow, because we're better than them. We're better athletes, and we were that game.
So we talked a little bit about your rivals and who you hated to play against, but if you could pick a guy that you played against your career that you wanted to sit next to in the locker room and from another team, and I know you guys spent a lot of time sitting next to each other in the Wings locker room, but who would that be from another team that you'd want to spend some time with and get to play with instead of against?
I mean, I think it's pretty easy for me, and I actually played with these two guys in the MLL, in the outdoor league, but John Grant and Tracy Kaluski. Grant, obviously all the accolades and watching what he does, but Tracy was such a smooth player, and I think we would have had a similar chemistry like Tommy and I had because of some of the nifty stuff that he can pull off. So those two guys, buddies of mine, because I played on teams with them. We actually roommates up in Rochester 1 year in the outdoor league, but I would have loved to have played indoor with those guys.
I thought about this. It was tough, but I never played with Sal Lacasio, and I've always liked Sal. Sal's a good guy, and I think he's very intense. Nobody knows that about him. He's very intense. He wants to win at everything, and he's just a good guy. Sal and I became really good friends.
And he did win a lot, except for when he was playing for the Saints. But interesting story about Sal Lacasio, which one day I'm going to get him on this podcast and talk to him and Patty McCabe. I have them lined up for the future because I think that's a great New York Saints story. But Sal Lacasio is the only American goalie to go into this Hall of Fame in the National Lacrosse League, and I think it has a lot to do with his adoption of the game and playing early on, and his determination at trying to be the best goalie that he could possibly be. But again, you take a guy that played a lot of field lacrosse, outdoor lacrosse, and then threw him into the goal for the New York Saints, and you got to give him a ton of credit, man. He has a Hall of Fame career as a pioneer goaltender, and a lot of people don't really understand why a guy like that would be in the Hall of Fame as an American goaltender that didn't have a huge track record of championships and whatnot, and but literally was the first pioneer American that kind of embraced the game and excelled at the game. So ton of credit to him. Talking about the Hall of Fame, and Tommy, you're in it. Jake, you're not, but it won't be long before you are. And I personally, who have the opportunity to vote on that, would vote for you in that situation very quickly. I think there's a lot of guys that aren't in the Hall of Fame, but resurrecting that is coming soon, and excited about what that means for the rest of the league and the legacy that you guys have. If you could name one guy that you would put in the Hall of Fame that is not there today, who might that be?
Well, mine's easy. Jake Bergey, obviously.
That's easy.
I can't. Well, what do you want me to do? He should be in the Hall of Fame. Jake Bergey should be in with me. We have our jerseys hanging up together. Why not be in the Hall of Fame together, right?
How about you, Jake? What do you think?
It's a good question, man. I didn't get prepped on this one, so I'd have to think about it a little bit. But there's just so many guys that are deserving of it, and so many guys that I really I've kind of read about, but didn't get to see a lot on the West Coast and in Calgary and some of those guys. So I'll get back to you on that one.
Well, hey, I'm gonna throw out some names to you guys, and I want your first reactions. And the interesting thing is, you guys have already brought them up throughout the conversation, but I want to talk a little bit about those guys. And obviously, top of the list, I'm going to throw the name and your first reaction when you hear the name Gary Gait.
Best friend, best teammate, best player.
Yeah, I mean, greatest of all time.
Bob Watson.
Very predictable. I love scoring goals on him. I scored many goals on Bobby Watson. Great guy, though. I guess because he's more, he's Toronto Rock, I guess. That's why I just love playing against him.
Yeah, I would say, just obviously a staple on that championship team. And, Tommy obviously scored more goals. I guess I had more assists against him because I don't remember running them up on him by any means.
Tony Resch.
One of my top 3 coaches ever. Love Tony Resch. Discipline. He has everything. Integrity, consistency as a coach. Very consistent. And I really, really enjoyed those years with Tony.
Yeah, Tony Resch, I think, is one of the greatest indoor coaches ever. And the one thing where I really noticed it was when we played in the Heritage Cup the first year, where U.S. kind of went in and we upset Canada in the Heritage Cup, and Tony Resch was our coach. We had all these players from different areas, and whenever we got in the locker room, the respect that he not only demanded, but the respect that he got from all the players, just, he started talking, everyone shut up and was like all in on whatever he had to say. And that's, that's not the first time I knew he was special, but that's when I really noticed, he doesn't just have my respect. He's got everyone in the league's respect.
I give him the most respect for being able to pull off the flowery shirt, no jacket, no tie, buttoned all the way up to the top. I mean, that's a strong, but if you can pull that off while you're yelling at a referee, I mean, I think that was pretty strong. I know
he had the Mr. Potato Head tie too, right?
Well, I know Tommy Ryan tried to pull off that look a little later on after Tony had retired, and it just failed miserably. So, if Tony can pull it off, anybody can pull it off. How about Casey Powell, fellas? I know a fellow Syracuse alum. Tommy, you watched him play for a long time.
Awesome outdoor player, very versatile, can play attack and midi. Unfortunate for him, he didn't get to play much. He was hurt in that 98 Special World game, Steve, that you and I were playing. A great game. But Casey became pretty good friends. We became pretty good friends recently. He was living just around the corner here in Sarasota. But unbelievable, athlete.
Yeah, I mean, Casey's fantastic. I actually met Casey. I think he was maybe even a freshman in college. But he came down. He was really close with Jason Kaufman, who was a teammate of mine at Salisbury, and kind of started getting to know Casey a little bit. And then over the years, obviously his work speaks for itself, both indoor and outdoor. I mean, top 2 or 3 players ever to play the game in any indoor or outdoor.
Well, he certainly rose to the top of the indoor game, for a number of years. And was he good, and he could put the ball in a coffee can. I'm sure he would say, and he was one of the first guests, or the first guest with John Grant on this podcast, and he gives a ton of credit to Tommy on kind of crafting the way he played the game and throwing a backhand and the respect that I think he garners throughout, all of indoor and outdoor lacrosse is pretty respected. So it's pretty good. Next name, and you already chatted about him, Tommy, Sal Acacio.
Intense, best outdoor goalie ever. Number 1, without a question. I got a funny story about Sal. We went to Myrtle Beach one year with Tim Sedan, Sal Lacasio, Mark Millen, and I think there's like 10 other UMass guys. They're all UMass alums. We go there. Sal Lacasio was in my golf cart. He didn't want anybody drinking beers. He was telling people not to pee in the woods. He was just a pain in the ass. And finally, after we played 9, we go to the snack shack around the turn, and I just bought a bag of like 20 beers on ice. And I said, Sal, you better shotgun one of these freaking things with me right now, or I'm going to kick you out of my cart. So he shotgunned a beer. All of a sudden, by the 12th hole, there's this par 3 with this little rowboat chained to the side. He's in the freaking rowboat, rowing, takes the chain off the freaking land. He goes, look, guys, I'm rowing. So he was wasted after being Mr. such a wimpy ass guy the whole 2 hours. I made him shotgun a beer, and then he had this plaid shirt on with plaid shorts. Didn't match. It was just an ugly mess, but he's a piece of work. I love Sally.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Sal as the Casey Powell of lacrosse, as the field player, to the goalie, where Sal's the best all-around goalie, indoor, outdoor there is, I think, period. There's not many that make that change, especially as well as he did it.
The antithesis of athletic goaltending, Terry Bullen.
Big, awkward, egg on a spooner, but gets the job done. Teammate of mine, 1990 Brooklyn Redmen. I actually won a Man Cup with him in 1990.
Yeah, I mean, just a big mean dude out there, and we had a bunch of run-ins, but I remember back when it was big to have your palms cut out of your gloves. And we were playing against them. And I remember he was holding his stick, kind of playing defense on me. And I looked down, and his fingers were wrapped around his stick, and he basically had no gloves on. And I turned and I slapped my stick down as hard as I could onto his fingers, just to see if I could get him to squeal a little bit, because I know he made me go into some pain over the years. But tough guy, competitor.
Last guy that I'll bring up is a bit of a curveball for you guys, but Andy Ogilvy.
Ooh. 1986 Minto Cup at Coquitlam. You know that arena, Govett. 86 Minto Cup, just a fighter. I forgot who he fought on Coquitlam, but we're in the stands at Squamish Legion watching, and I said, that guy's the toughest guy I've ever seen in my life. He just wailed one of the biggest guys in the league from Coquitlam, and he's just hard-nosed. And we ended up playing with him in 94. He was on our Canadian team, and what a sweetheart of a guy. You would never think a guy that sweet could be so tough and mean, but he's one of the toughest guys I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I think he pretty much hit the nail on the head. Just a tough, mean dude, fighter that that intimidated people.
So, hey, I close the podcast with everybody with kind of the same question, because I think the stories, the narratives that we want to craft of our history in the National Lacrosse League and history of the major indoor lacrosse league, we got to tell at some point, and getting it out there and recording what we think those stories should be is the start of the process. But if you could craft a 30 for 30, an ESPN 30 for 30, about any topic in the National Lacrosse League, what would that topic be?
Well, I mean, I think if you could, basically, if you could follow just basically a weekend of these players, what they go through, catching their flight to when they land back in Philly, I think that would be something. But personally, and I guess not really the NLL, but I would say, and I'm probably biased in this whole thing, but the Heritage Cup team that we had, where the U.S. upset Canada, is probably as big as any Canadian over U.S. outdoor upset there was. just as in the indoor game. I think that would probably make a pretty good story.
It was a pretty good story.
I would
were
have
you on that team in 2002?
No, I took a year off. I would say that 2001 team, the Philadelphia Wings 2001 has to be down there as a 30 for 30. We were underdogs, and everybody counted us out. So that was a great special year for us, Jake, and the Wings.
Yeah, we have some documentation of that too, because I remember I took a video camera that I had kind of behind the scenes. That was one of the early portions of that, but I got to try to dig that tape up because it's something.
Yeah, I remember. I think you and Gagliardi. I think Gags had a video camera that whole season because he wasn't playing that much at first.
Right.
And I knew we made it when we had our own posters in those posts outside of the arena. Remember?
Yeah,
so we're driving our cars, and I'm like, "Oh, Jake, there you are. Tom, there you are." So we had our own little stalls, our little posters outside of the Wells Fargo Center. But
Dallas Elliott still posts that on his feed every other week.
Yeah, and hey, Dallas Elliott would be a good story, 30 for 30.
Oh yeah,
right?
No doubt.
Living in houses, dating Coors Light 6-pack cheerleaders from Buffalo, marrying them, and getting divorced, and coming back. And Dallas is a piece of work, buddy. He was the best goalie, bar none, that I've ever seen in indoor. Best indoor goalie. Kept us in a lot of games, right, Jake? A lot of games.
Absolutely, no doubt.
A lot of games, a lot of rings that we have are attributed to the play of Dallas Elliott. God bless him.
Yeah.
Fellas, it's been a pleasure. It's certainly,
like I said at the onset, two of my favorite players ever to play the game, and two of my favorite teammates, and obviously Tommy and I came in together, and Jake and I went out together, and so at the end of the day, I was proud to watch and get to play my last year with your first year, Jake, and Tommy. Your career speaks for itself, and obviously a Hall of Famer in a lot of Hall of Fames. And so I'm proud to do this with you guys. Thanks for taking some time out and doing the TFL podcast, and that closes out episode 14, and looking forward to getting up next week with our next guest. But thanks, fellas, appreciate it very much.
All right,
thanks.
Steve, thanks
Steve.
seeing you. Catch you at a game this year.
Come down and visit. Get on the golf course. Let's do it.
got to play a little golf.